Hello everybody. Let's use the debugger to do some code tracing to figure out why a null pointer exception is happening in this code that a student sent. So I'm going to run it. Actually, I guess maybe let's talk through it first. So we've got a point list that can hold a bunch of points. We're looping, it looks like 101 times because we're going from 0 up to 100. Then we're creating a new point using the point constructor with some random xy coordinates. And we're saving that point object inside P, and then we add that point to our point list. And then if I equals 100, so that's like the last loop. So if it's the very last loop, I'll take my point P and I'll assign it to the target variable. And then I check if the distance between P and the target is smaller than 50. Then I'll print out whatever the P point is. And then at the end, I print out the whole point list. Okay, so you saw that I just ran it, and I'm getting a null pointer exception here. This line right underneath tells us where it's happening. So right here is where it's happening. So something on this line is null. And if you remember what null pointer means, it's when a variable that's supposed to contain an object doesn't actually contain an object. It just contains nothing. So there's only two possibilities here, either this or other, because those are the only two variables that are running methods. This isn't really a variable. This is a keyword that refers to the currently executing object. So it's not possible for this to be null. So it's got to be other that's null. And so the question is, other gets passed in as an input to the distance2 method. So for some reason, we think we're passing in a point object, but actually we're passing in an empty variable, and we've got to figure out why. Maybe you can figure out why if you trace it. But a nice thing you can do that will help you think about it much more easily is to insert a breakpoint by clicking between the line number and the editor pane here, and it'll insert this red circle. That's called a breakpoint. And then you can click the little green bug up here. That's the debugging icon. And that's going to run the code, but it will pause the code's execution on the line where the breakpoint is. So here we are. The code is running. The code is paused right here. And I can hit this button, step over, that will run the code one line at a time. So here I've ran one line, I ran one line, and you can see the values of the variables right now. So I is 0. I run this. You can see that P contains this. This thing that says point at 477, that's like the memory reference that points at the point object we just created. And you can see information about the point, so we can see what its XY coordinates are. Okay, so let's keep going. So there we go. There we go. Aha. So here we see it says null passed where not null expected. So what's it talking about here? If you look down here, this shows you the current value of all your variables, and we see that the target variable equals null. And the reason the target variable equals null is because it was declared up here, but we haven't assigned an actual point object to the target yet. Meanwhile, we're just about to ask whether our point's distance to the target is less than or equal to 50. So we're just about to pass this target as an input into distance2, but target contains null, and that's where the null pointer is coming from. So you can see that by stepping one line at a time using the debugger and like inspecting the values inside all of the variables, very often you can figure out what's going on. Come back in the next video and we'll talk about some peculiar aspects of this code and how we can kind of clean it up.